Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closesio, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Sammons, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind impactful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're joined by Alison Blackler, the founder of Two Minds, a coaching and consulting practice that helps individuals, leaders, and organizations unlock resilience, overcome imposter syndrome, and strengthen communications through mindset transformations. Alison, very warm welcome to Founders Future.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you here. With all of my guests, I like to start at the beginning of their journey. So can you maybe take us back to what you was doing before you started up Two Minds? What motivated you to start up the company?
I'd love to. So very different to working for myself, worked in the NHS. So my background, I started working in the NHS when I was about 19 and worked there for 24 years. And in that time, I specialised mainly was working as a therapist, but I specialised in domestic violence for quite a number of years, in drugs and alcohol, in safeguarding. So I was always at the heart of people and their stuff, really. And then 15 years ago, I left the NHS, and it was nearly an overnight leave, but I can tell you a bit more about that if you want. But I did leave because my values were slightly being challenged. The NHS, while it's an amazing thing, just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
A lot of my own journey, I developed my own confidence and my own self-belief to say, do you know what? I can do this myself. So it was a bit of a shock. I think quite a few people thought I was absolutely mental, leaving my permanent post and my pension and all my security, which, yes, on one level, it absolutely was, but it was the right thing and the right time for me to go.
Amazing. And how long ago was this? Do you mind me asking?
15 years.
15 years ago. So that was when you made the abrupt separation for the NHS and then went
Yeah.
on the entrepreneurial journey. And how did you find the switch over from working, obviously, for the NHS, which is very largely known in the UK? So how did you make the switch from working for such a big impacted company and then coming from on your own?
It was so different. I don't know whether I'd quite anticipated how different. In terms of what I was doing, I was still similarly then, I was still
Yeah.
working with a lot of one-to-one clients. So it was a similar work, but of course I could do it my way, which is one of the things that I've really loved, where I've been able to can constantly pivot and change. But I
Yeah.
think the thing that was really interesting was I'd had no idea how to network, market, promote. Like in the NHS,
Yeah.
you show up every day, you do your work, and you then go home. You're not really needing to network, market, any of these things. That was a massive learning curve for
Hmm.
me. And it changes every day, doesn't it, anyway? So it was huge. I remember going to my first ever networking meeting and being a bit like, wow, what is this thing? It was amazing. So it was brilliant because it was the right thing, but I'm not going to lie, it had its times where it was a bit like, oh, wow, it's just me. I didn't have a
Yeah.
team around me. As a self-employed person, you've got to be lots of different things for yourself. And I had all that to navigate.
Yeah, 100%. It's the thing with moving from, as you say, a secure job where you just go there, leave your work, and then come home again, even in such a big organization, that completely changes for entrepreneurs. There's a lot of balls to juggle, and many hats to be wearing all hours of the day.
Definitely.
Love it. So let's dive into the business itself today so the listeners have a little bit more context. Who would you say is your ideal customer? And then from there, what services do you provide to them?
Yeah, so my ideal customers are businesses or founders or leaders
Mm.
who either are super ambitious, so they know exactly what they want, but they also know that there's stuff that's stopping them getting there. So it could be an individual who is wanting to really be progressive, but really understands that they want to understand their own minds better and their behaviors, and a team or a business who also has, so they've got a lot going on. They really know what they're doing, but they want to go deeper.
Yeah.
Or an organization where they know they've got a lot of problems. So there might be a problem with the leadership, there might be problem motivating, getting people engaged. And so I tend to go both ends of those spectrums, really, in terms of my ideal client. And in terms of this sort of industry, I have worked with every industry, I think, in my time, but I do enjoy working with, as I said, ambitious leaders and businesses, but ones where they know that their people are so important, but they don't necessarily have the tools and the skills to be able to do that. So maybe accountants, lawyers, finance people, where they, by their own admittance, they are not necessarily good with their people. They're good with
Yeah.
the detail of their work. And I find that I can really bring a lot to the table for those people.
Amazing. And then so how is it that you help them? Walk me through that kind of process, like one-to-one coaching, group coaching. Walk me through the offer exactly. So
Yeah,
we
so I do work with individuals, as I said before, but mainly I work and I offer a program called Leading with the Brain in Mind, which I have developed. And I bring the neuroscience and a lot of the models that I learned as a therapist and coach
yeah.
into the team, into the leadership. And we go on a journey to look at all the problems and using models to help understand the problems. So looking at drama, looking at how the emotional brain works, looking at how we can actually understand that everyone is different. So we do that. And then I've got lots of tools and models that I offer to be able to make things better. So improve communication, improve the way that you give feedback, improve how you get help, ask for help. So it's very interactive, very experiential. And then I do group coaching in between the face-to-face sessions because I believe that we learn better when we hear that others are either struggling or you might feel inspired by somebody else. And
Mm,
then, as I said, I do sometimes then offer one-to-one for those that are either what really wanting the one-to-one. So that's mainly what I do with businesses. I do ad hoc sessions sometimes. Somebody, they might say they just want a session on resilience or they just want a session on having difficult conversations or something like that, which I can do. But obviously, for me, if you want the transformation in your business, you're going to need to invest in certainly the senior teams. Because what I see so often is people get promoted because they're good at the job, but
mm.
they are now in a absolute rabbit in the headlights because they're now having to try and work out how do I get people to do things because people are complicated and they you can say one thing to five people and they'll all interpret it completely differently. And I like to help people. I like to lift the lid on that and explain why. Because I believe if we understand why, then we've got a chance of being able to change it.
100%. And as you said, like the jump just from promotion and then leadership doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. It's a very hard concept to grasp.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just the guidance along there. And then in terms of the group, again, when you say the camaraderie there, so you've got other people that are there with you, you're not alone, they understand the process. Do you feel that builds a better connection with you and the group itself as well? Because they have other people to lean on throughout the session.
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't necessarily have all the answers. My job is to ask the questions. So when they're able to see things together, it's almost like they start to face each other almost more because they see
Yeah.
each other. They either see each other's differences and then accept that instead of because I often work with businesses where they don't see eye to eye. They literally don't get, they think they don't get on, but it's not really that they don't get on. It's not personal. It's more they just process differently. And if you can understand that, and then you can use people's differences as strengths rather than it be a problem. Or
Mm.
you might find that there's one person that everybody has this idea that they are moody or this, that. You've got to try and help people be able to show up and get the best out of people.
Yeah, exactly. And even understand other people, as you said before, you can say one thing to somebody, you can say one thing to five people, and they can all interpret in a completely different way, depending on what mood they're in, what's going on with their situations. It's a real challenge.
It's
Um,
complex. Often, if you ask a leader who, what's your biggest problem? Most of them go, the people. And yet they are your biggest asset as well. So for
yeah.
me, and I think the other thing that I always feel is if there is some real deep-rooted problems in a business, they can keep going round and round and round, and it makes everyone really miserable. And for me, to be able to bring some clarity into a business, but not just on the surface. My stuff, people share that it goes that bit deeper. So we
Yeah.
really understand because that was my own growth. When I understood my mind, when I started on this journey 30 years ago, I wanted to understand the relationship between the way that we're wired and then me. And I
Mm,
think I can bring that to a group of people and I can just help them all see so that they all have those moments where they're like, oh, I
amazing.
get it now. And
Yeah,
wow, from there they can then go on and have better conversations, feel happy. What are people saying at the dinner table? That's what you want to influence when you are speaking with teams and leaders.
yeah, and then from there, I suppose naturally the what's the word I'm looking for? The camaraderie within the team thrives, the productivity thrives, even the profitability of the company itself, the business will be thriving because the energy is so uplifted and everyone's on the same page, everyone understands what's going on and
Yeah.
feeling connected.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Or they're not, but they get it. I think that's
Yeah,
the other thing.
that's
They're
what I'm
not on the
saying.
same page, but they get it. So that's the
Yeah,
difference. You don't
yeah,
all have to see it the same way, but we do need to work together. And I think there's a lot of time and money wasted in businesses because they don't have this bit aligned.
amazing. So let's shift a little bit to the back end of the business. So when it comes to acquiring your customers, what channels and methods are you finding most effective at the moment in doing so?
I've always been very lucky with word of mouth, which obviously is brilliant because somebody knows somebody who already trusts and they've said, you should speak to Alison or you should have a chat there. So that has always been good. But I think with the way that things are today, that doesn't necessarily mean they might not be my ideal client because they,
Yeah,
especially as I'm doing a lot more leadership stuff, I am doing my best work trying to improve LinkedIn and my profile on LinkedIn because I do believe that is a brilliant platform for having conversations and people being able to show up in a expert way.
yeah,
There are a lot of people in this field, in leadership, in mindset, in coaching, a lot of people. And for me, I've just put a post up now actually about checking people's credibility and qualifications and things because you need to know that who is going to help you knows what they're doing.
yeah.
I think it's so important. So I think that's to be show credibility, show that you are the real deal, I think is so important.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, cutting through the noise, making sure that everything is there and aligned on the fulfillment side of things as well, and it's not just pushing out for the sake of pushing things out. So
Exactly.
so it's great to hear that you're so mainly organic at the moment and fly, like thriving through that. Have so once you've acquired the lead and we've run it through there, what does the sales process look like? Are you currently still on your own working as a solopreneur, or do you have a team that help you with the marketing and the sales side of things as well at the moment?
So I don't have a team. I used to have a team. I used to have a person who was employed by me. I tend to use freelancers now. So I do have help because I can't do it all. So I do have people who can help me sometimes with certain pieces, but I do spend a lot of the time working as in myself, but I am also always open and do collaboration work with people because I often notice about myself, I do my best work when if we were going to design a workshop, for example, I could go away and do it. But if I
Yeah,
did it with you, it would be so much better because I think I know myself. I know I come up with miles better ideas when I'm chatting and, oh, what about this and what about that? And boop, 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 all my ideas come. So I always look actively for opportunities to do things with other people because it can be very lonely working on your own
yeah.
and having somebody to bounce ideas off is so much more fun.
100%. And two minds are better than one sometimes as well.
That was one of
Flying
the
away
reasons. Yeah, I love it.
together.
I love it. Well done. That's one of my when people say to me, why is the business called Two Minds? That is one of the reasons behind it. And then there's the conscious and subconscious, which obviously I can work with both of those as well. So there was two reasons for that. But yeah, and then you hear people say, I'm in two minds. Yay, I can help you with that.
Amazing. I love that you have, again, the community that is there and you can feed each other work, move around, and as you say, help each other blossom through your journey. Once we have, so are you conducting sales calls as well, or what does that process look like once you've got a customer acquired? Do you run?
Yeah, I would always speak to everybody really. I have some products that people can buy. I've got an online program that sort of called the Mind Traveler, which helps you understand your mind. People could just buy that. I've got some books that I've written that people could just buy those, but everyone else I would always actively have a conversation to make sure that I know exactly what they need, what they're looking for. Am I the right person? I would always want to make sure that I think I can help them. So for me, really almost interviewing each other really to make sure that I think that I can help them is so important to me. And if I'm not, then I'm more than happy to help them find somebody who I think is.
Amazing. Yeah, exactly. Building that relation from the start has to work well on both sides to start with
Yeah.
from the get-go. So I want to move into your plans and the vision for the future. So over the next 12 months, are there any specific goals or like milestones that you're excited to work towards and achieve?
It's an interesting question because I have just achieved a goal that I was working towards for 8 months, and that was a TEDx talk. So I've
Nice.
just done a TEDx talk. So if you know anything about TEDx, it's quite a process. You can't just decide I'm going to do one. You have to apply. You've got to put your pitch in. So I have been doing that. Applied in November. I got my idea accepted in January, and then I delivered my TEDx talk in front of a live audience in July. So that was like a big, huge achievement, the biggest achievement for me to date.
Yeah.
And I think when I think about my own personal journey, and I think I've done that now, I'm like, wow, I am living proof that you literally can do whatever you want if you do the work. So I think the biggest thing for me is to use that as an opportunity to open more conversations and more doors,
Hmm.
hopefully. So my topic is about multi-generations in businesses. And I believe that even though we've always had multiple generations working in businesses, and there'll have always been positives and challenges, I'm very curious as to how leadership needs to change when we've got 19-year-olds and 60-year-olds and everything in the middle, all
Yeah.
working in the same space. We've got to pivot, we've got to change. The younger generation are different, as every generation always has been, but I'm curious with tech and the pandemic, what the difference has made to the people coming into the workplace now. And
Hmm.
then what about all the wisdom at one end? And my TEDx talk is challenging the stereotypes that we make about the young generation and the older generation. So I
Yeah.
believe it's something that is really healthy to talk about because we are writing people off because they're too old or they're too young. And I think there's so much opportunity and potential in embracing everyone's ideas, regardless of how old they are.
Yeah.
Somebody very young can come up with the most incredible idea. We often say, don't we, that people say, oh, the Gen Zs, they don't stick at anything, but there's more young entrepreneurs like yourself than ever before. So I'm really keen to have more conversations about this topic because I think it's something that we all do too easily. We often, lots of people talk about diversity and making sure that you are inclusive, but we're not putting age.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you've had an experience. I certainly had an experience when I was younger, and yeah, I was like made to feel like, well, what do you know? But so
Yeah, it's a funny one, and funny enough, you brought up diversity because that's exactly what I was thinking while you was saying that is that we have a big influence on diversity, make sure everyone is included and that the whole world is together. But when it comes to age, it's a very different outlook.
exactly,
It really is. And I don't know about you, and I don't know if maybe has an effect, but I feel like the generational gap at the moment is very big
that's
between
why I agree.
50, if you're in your 50s or if you're in your 20s. It's a completely different world that you live in compared to
Yes,
maybe what it was like 20 years ago when I was growing up. So I'm 30 this year and I feel like I'm miles away from everyone that's 20 or 50. So it's the gaps are getting bigger between
I
the
think so.
gen.
I'm so glad you said that actually, because obviously you are a different generation to me. And while every generation has always had its own way of being to a point, not again, not stereotyping, depending on when you were born, you will have different things that were happening around the time that you were born. And people who say to me, yeah, but there's always been the generation gap. Yeah, but I think it's bigger.
Yeah,
And I'm
it's
so glad
definitely
that you said that because obviously that's what I think. But just to have somebody else reflect that back to me is, yes, I'm right. And then we're missing out if we don't think about it, if we don't stop judging each other and saying, "Oh, what do you know?" And oh, these old people, this stereotyping. In my TEDx talk, I raised the point that we have a vocabulary for it. So the boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, etc. But we don't all fit into a
No.
box at all. So I'm really wanting to be, and I'd love to talk more about that, speak on stages about it, and really get people to think about what they're doing. Because if everybody could turn down their stereotyping, then we would be more open to way more, and a business would grow. Reverse mentoring, let's have the younger ones in, let's think about, but then he's equally leaning into the strengths that come from the different generations as well. So there's huge strengths with each generation, but there's also
100%.
some things that could be improved.
No, 100%. Everyone has their uniqueness that they need to bring to the table and their strong points. And that doesn't matter from what generation you come from, what background you come from. They should all be highlighted in the same way. But as you say, everyone's got their categories. They're putting everybody in boxes.
Yeah,
And if you don't fit within the box, you're stuck. You're stuck in a hole with
yeah,
people you don't really understand. So
exactly.
it's a long process. But yeah, it's definitely on the forefront. I feel like it's very true. So with regards to Two Minds, do you have any process of scaling that side of the business as well? Are you working towards any milestones there?
I think from a sort of, as I've said before, from a literal point of view, I want to be speaking more, having done a TEDx now. So I think there's definitely a plan to do more of that. So the less one-to-one, more kind of
More.
being trying to encourage people to think for themselves. And I think I'm always open to not pivoting, because that makes me sound like I'm not in charge of it, but being really mindful of the problems that people are facing, and then create something that's where I created Leading with the Brain in Mind, because I could hear that businesses were struggling with their people. And so for me, it's just what's next, what are people needing, and then let's find a solution for that.
And what would you say is the biggest challenge in making that all happen at the moment?
Probably time, which I think is a lame thing to say, and I will always challenge people when they say, "I haven't got time to do that." But I just think I've got to walk my own talk and be realistic about, because I have billions of ideas, and then have to be realistic about how do I make that happen, because that's otherwise you're just a messing about, busy fool kind of thing.
Yeah, amazing. But the hardest part is starting sometimes, and there's no right time to start. You should just start. In my
Yeah.
opinion. Just jump into
And
it.
yeah, and I think the other thing, I've got two books that I've written. One is for yourself, so it's understanding yourself. The other one is relationships, because I've specialized a lot in relationships. And I do think that there's a third one about the teams and all the experience that I can bring to the team. So whether I get round to starting that in 2026, I've probably started it already because I have got lots of content, but formulating it into a book would be good.
We need to lock you away somewhere so we can get the productivity flowing and just not let you out until the book's finished.
That's it, yeah.
We've got
I'll be
one
like,
speaking
I'll be like
engagement
that at the
book.
window. Please let me out.
Amazing. So before we wrap up, I've got one final question for you. If you was to go back to a younger self, Alison 15 years ago before she started her entrepreneurial journey, and you could only leave her with one piece of advice moving forward, what would that be?
Never give up. Whatever it is that comes, whatever feels like a challenge, just lean into other people. Just keep going. Because if you think you touched on it earlier, it is a big thing to leave a security of a paid job to be an entrepreneur. But I think you do genuinely have to just keep going, keep brushing. I think, okay, that never see anything as a failure. Just
Yep.
find a way. That's definitely what I've done.
Amazing. Just keep going, one foot in front of the other. Never
That's
stop.
it.
Don't look back. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Perfect. And with that is a wrap on another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Alison, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people reach out to connect and work with you if they'd like to do?
Of course, yeah. So probably best place is my website, because on there is everything. You can see my TED talk on there. You can follow my LinkedIn, etc. So my website is www.2- with a little dash minds minds.co.uk.
Amazing. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please go and subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and be sure to go and give Alison a check out on the website too. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you really want to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, Visit Closesio to hop on a call with one of our team and discover how we were able to go from 0 to 30 million per year in less than 3 years. But until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.